bigtractorpower.com is here at the Wathen Farm in Evansville, Indiana. There's a great four-wheel drive collection here that includes Steigers, Big Buds, Wagners, and a few other models. We'll take a look at some of the tractors lined up here. The first models that we'll see are known as the Barn Series Steigers. These are tractors that were hand-built by the Steiger brothers on their farm in North Dakota in the late 1960s. Here we have a model 1700. You'll notice these models are distinguished by the V cut out in their grill. That was to let the heat and exhaust out through the front of the tractor. We see an industrial yellow 1700, which would be an extremely rare model in the series. We also have a model 1250, which was a smaller version in the Steiger line during the late 1960s. In the early 1970s, Allis-Chalmers contracted with Steiger to build a four-wheel drive. This was called the Allis-Chalmers 440, part of the Land Handler series. This is an earlier model with the white cab. Here we have an extremely rare and famous Steiger. This was the Pink Panther. Chris found it in Oklahoma. It was repainted to green, but when we look upon closer inspection, you can start to see the original pink paint through the faded green. This tractor will eventually be restored back to its original pink color. This tractor spent many years on a ranch, and it was out in a pasture where it was used every few years to turn over the grassland and reseed. Cows would rub up on it, and here you can see the pink paint showing through the green. This will definitely be a standout tractor when it's restored. We can also look up here on the grab rails of the cab and see the pink paint. The legend behind this tractor is it was owned by a race car driver who originally ordered it from Fargo, North Dakota at the Steiger factory. Green is an unlucky color in racing, and they picked out pink for the tractor. Here we see one of the big Barn Series Steigers, the Steiger 3300. This was a top-of-the-line model in the late 1960s. Chris has two of them in his collection. As you can see, this one is fitted with duals, and another one is parked over this way. Chris is also a white farm equipment fan, and here we can see an Oliver 2255 in the lineup. One of the recent additions to Chris's collection is a Jackson four-wheel drive. It is reported that there were about 12 of these produced. These were a farm-built four-wheel drive tractor that were headed towards full production. They were painted green and yellow. For a four-wheel drive fan, a Jackson is definitely a rare find these days. Another rare tractor in the collection is a Co-op Cougar 2. Co-op produced Series 1 and Series 2 tractors in the early 1970s with the Steiger company. This is the Cougar 2 model. Co-op contracted to have Bearcat and Cougar models produced as Series 1 and Series 2 models. Later models in the Series 3 were simply painted green and distributed through co-op dealers. These tractors were primarily sold in Canada. This one actually was farmer owned in Montana as a one-owner tractor, and now is in the Wathen collection. We're definitely looking forward on bigtractorpower.com to filming this tractor set up with duals out in the field. Another rare tractor in the collection is an open station Oliver 2655 LP. It is reported that there were only 62 models produced in the LP version of the 2655. Back here we can see the LP tank. Here's another view of the LP tank. We can see there's a little bit of Minneapolis mullein yellow in the tank in the seat. These were also produced as the White Plainsman tractor and the Minneapolis mullein A4T 1600. This is another tractor that bigtractorpower.com looks forward to filming out in the field. The biggest name in four-wheel drive tractors is Big Bud. Chris has two Big Buds. Both are very nice examples of Big Bud history. The first tractor is an HN250. This was the first Bud introduced back in 1969. This particular model is unique in that it is set up on triple tires. 250 is the horsepower. HN stands for Hensler and Nelson. Willie Hensler was a Wagner dealer who started Big Bud. N stands for Nelson. Nelson was the shop foreman at the Wagner dealership, and Big Bud Nelson was involved in designing these original Series 1 Big Bud tractors. We'll come around to the back to look at another unique option on this HN250, and that is an additional fuel tank here in the center of the tractor. Most Big Buds have an open area above the hitch. This particular model has a center fuel tank, which again makes it a rare option on a Big Bud. The next tractor is the best-selling Big Bud ever, and that is the 525/50. This particular tractor has a later cab known as the ROPS cab. Some Series 3 Big Buds have a rounded out cab known as the Cruiser cab. In mid-1981, Big Bud changed its design and built a rollover protection cab, and that is the cab on this tractor. This tractor was repowered and designated as a 650 and was part of a earth moving crew in Louisiana. Chris purchased the tractor completely stripped down without wheels or an engine and completely restored the tractor in 2009. If you visit Big Tractor Power's YouTube channel, you can see several videos of this impressive tractor at work out in the field. We'll walk out here and take a look at a few of other tractors in Chris's collection. First tractor we'll look at is another barn-built tractor. This one was restored about 10 years ago by Chris. It is a model 2200. It was the second largest barn series tractor. This tractor was nicknamed on the Wathen farm as Fatso because it has the large flotation tires on it. Again, if you visit Big Tractor Power's YouTube channel, you can see this tractor in action, working out in the field disking. It had a Detroit diesel inside it. Here you can see what the original Steiger decal looked like. It has the large V in the grill that was painted red. Steigers were very basic, well-built tractors in the 1960s and pioneered the four-wheel drive revolution. Many of these tractors are used in the field in the Wathen operation. 2200 is used on a cultivator or field cultivator in the spring to work up some river bottom ground and mix in sand that comes up from the river back into the soil. Another tractor that's used out in the field on the Wathen farm is this Versatile 876. This was a Designation 6 model that was in production in the mid-1980s, just before Ford New Holland acquired Versatile in 1986. This is an early merger tractor, as it has the Ford emblem on the hood. In 1990, Ford changed all the Designation 6 tractors into the Ford colors of blue and white. As we head over this way, here's another Steiger. This is a Series 2, 1975 model. Steiger built several Series 2 and a few Series 3 models in red, white, and blue for the bicentennial in 1976. In October of 75, red, white, and blue Series 2 models that included Tigers, Cougars, and Panthers were released. It was for Stars and Stripes for the 200th anniversary of the United States. This particular model is a Tiger 2. It is waiting restoration. These tractors were painted at a body shop in North Dakota near the Steiger factory. It is reported that there were 50 of these tractors produced, one for each state. There may have been a few less than 50 because they were a special order and paint job, but there are definitely a number of Series 2 on the market, as well as a few Series 3. Unfortunately, many were painted back to green in the 1980s as they were traded in, and dealers did not see the future collectability of them and painted them back to Steiger green. We'll walk back up here to see more of the collection. Here's a homemade tractor built from a Euclid construction machine. This would have been a large two-wheel drive tractor that was farmer built. See a very nice 1566 that is used for bush hog work here on the farm. Wagner was the pioneer of all four-wheel drive, starting in 1949 producing articulated tractors. This is probably the smallest Wagner that was produced. Here's another early four-wheel drive. This would have been a rigid frame tractor. Again, custom built. Here's a McCormick Deering steamroller using a tractor mounted engine. Another rare Steiger in the collection is a Tiger 800. This was also built by the Steiger brothers. This would have been one of the last tractors built at the Steiger farm before the factory opened in 1969. So we can see it has a lot of the same styling as the early Series 1 tractors. Again, if you visit the Big Tractor Power YouTube channel, you can actually see this tractor out in the field at work. Here we see another Steiger 1700. Take a look at Steigers on the way back up here to see a few more models. Again, the 3300, Oliver 2255, the Pink Panther, an ST310, the Allis-Chalmers 440, Steiger 1250, the Industrial 1700, regular green 1700. The tractor parked up here by the grain bins is another home-built tractor built by Chris Wathen's father in the 1960s, used here on the farm. Chris recently located the tractor and purchased it and brought it home to add to his four-wheel drive collection. One of the main workhorses on the farm, in addition to the 525/50 Big Bud, is a Panther KP 1360, part of the 1000 series Steiger line from the mid-1980s. It's set up here for fall tillage with a Landau disc and Brilliant Packer. Again, if you watch Big Tractor Power on YouTube, you can see a few videos of this big tractor at work. We'll take a peek inside the machine shed to see a few more rare tractors. This is a serial number 2 Minneapolis Moline G1350. It is also an LP model, like the Oliver 2655 that we saw earlier in the video. As we walk to the back of the shed, there are a few more tractors in the collection that are unique. Again, Wagner was an early pioneer in the four-wheel drive line, while some of the Wagners, like this one, a TR9, TR6s, were small, but they were definitely effective for the owners. And we see another early Wagner. The largest Wagner ever built is a WA-24. This is a Rayo-Wagner. In 1968, Wagner was contracted with John Deere to build a series of four-wheel drives known as the WA-17 and 14. John Deere only built a very few four-wheel drives with Wagner, but an exclusivity contract barred Wagner from building any tractors for a 5-year period. In 1972, Rayo bought the remaining parts of Wagner and produced this large four-wheel drive. It has a unique black stripe that runs up the hood and over and comes down the back of the tractor. Another standout piece in the collection is this International 4366. This is serial number 1. International, like Allis-Chalmers, in 1973 contracted with Steiger to build it a four-wheel drive line, and this is the very first one off the line with serial number 1. Hope that you've enjoyed this tour of the Wathen collection, and we're looking forward to continuing to film many of these classics out in the field.